Hey guys, in this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be having a discussion about the future of the historical fiction genre. So, this video is probably going to be fairly just short and to the point because it's going to be more of just a discussion, and if you guys are interested in just, talking with me down in the comments below. My question, the state and the future of the historical fiction genre, let's just say, maybe 50 years from now, let's just throw it out there, 50 years from now. As we know, history is a just forever thing. Until the Earth, or the Sun rather, until the Sun blows up and we're sucked into a black hole, maybe a couple more millennia from now, we're still going to have history. So, history is always going to be a thing, and that means there's going to be more events that happen, there's going to be more people that happen. So, that's my question. Maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now, what do you think are going to be some of the big hot topics for the historical fiction genre? Because I think the historical fiction genre, I don't think the genre is ever going to go extinct. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a genre that will keep chugging along. There may be some down periods, historical fiction may not be published as often in some years, but then other years it may just release skyrocket up there, I think there's always going to be a fascination and love for the historical fiction genre. It's just going to be a matter of, what are going to be some of those big, eye-catching events and people that people might gravitate to in the future, possibly. So yeah, I've come up with a list of some things, what I think might be some popular topics 50 years from now. Fortunately, I'll still be alive in the next 50 years, who knows. But yeah, I'm someone who loves all things like the British monarchy. So I feel like the British monarchy is going to continue to be a really fascinating subject. Now, I do feel like over time, certain topics are not going to be, as interesting to people. I feel like, because there's so many books out there, like right now, especially about the Tudors and Queen Elizabeth I, for instance, and I feel like over time, people will not write as many books about the Tudors or Elizabethan England from, but I think some new people may emerge, some new fascinating people, because in the last couple years, I think thanks to Netflix's The Crown, there has been quite a number of books that have been released recently that are focused on either Queen Elizabeth II's mother, or Queen Elizabeth II herself, or her sister Princess Margaret. There's been quite a number of books released about Queen Elizabeth II. So I feel like Queen Elizabeth II is going to continue to be a point of interest for the future of historical fiction. And not only Queen Elizabeth II, but I think Princess Diana. There has not, to the best of my knowledge, there's not really been any sort of historical fiction thus far written about Princess Diana, and that's almost kind of shocking to me, but I think in some ways she's almost still viewed as a contemporary figure. So I really do feel strongly that 50 years from now we're going to get a lot of historical fiction focused on Princess Diana. And not only that, but Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle, I think, are also going to be some really fascinating points for historical fiction. So yeah, the monarchy, God knows, it could be abolished for all we know within the next decade or two, who knows. But I think the people within it are going to remain fascinating figures, especially when it comes to historical fiction genre. And then I think something else that will maybe start being interesting, that people will get an interest in, the wives of presidents, American presidents. But in the last couple years, I've definitely started noticing that, like Jackie Kennedy, for instance, there's been quite a few historical fiction books written about Jackie Kennedy, who was the wife of John F. Kennedy. But yeah, there's not really been any other presidential wives that have been explored yet. But I really feel like in the next 50 years or so, I feel like that might be a fascinating subject for historical fiction writers to tackle. Not only some of our contemporary presidential wives, but like even going back to like George Washington, for instance, or even the wife of Abraham Lincoln. I think it'd be really great if a writer just started with, you know, Martha Washington and like worked her way up to all the wives of the presidents. I think that would be actually pretty cool. I would read that. That's a lot of books, but I would read it. So yeah, like I said, Jackie Kennedy has been fairly popular the last couple years. So I think some future topics, I think Hillary Clinton would be interesting, Laura Bush, Michelle Obama would probably be a huge favorite, and yeah, even Melania Trump, you guys, even her. I think a lot of I think there's especially these women that I've just picked out. I think these women specifically would be really fascinating people to focus on, just the time periods they are in, some of the events that have occurred. So I think presidential wives will be a fascinating subject in the future, maybe. And then of course, historical fiction isn't just going to be focused on people sometimes, it's going to be focused on events. So, you know, anything that's like a social justice movement, you know, anything dealing with race or the LGBT community, you know, I think things like that will continue to be bigger in the historical fiction genre, especially 50 years from now. And then obviously anything like if a country has some sort of big triumph, like here in America, like a big horrifying event, you know, any horrifying events will be big, like 9/11. I think 9/11 historical fiction is going to start being a bigger thing 50 years from now. And then yeah, the wars after. And then even the coronavirus, you guys. I initially kind of came up with this list because I was just sitting and thinking about, you know, the coronavirus pandemic, and I was just thinking about historical fiction and that, and I was like, you know what? Coronavirus, that's going to be a big thing for historical fiction in the future, I feel like, and it's going to be a great playground, you know, it's going to be a perfect playground for authors to kind of mess around with, because yeah, even in recent years, because we hit like the 100th anniversary of, you know, the Spanish influenza epidemic, like back in 2018, so I feel like it's going to be a thing that coronavirus authors will be like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. So I've been talking about historical fiction that may or may not be popular in the next 50, 100 years, but that also kind of leaves me to question, you know, what might not be so popular 50, 100 years from now. What genres within the historical fiction genre might kind of dwindle and die down, like I was kind of mentioning. I feel like eventually, you know, because there's such a huge interest in the Tudors and the Elizabethan era right now, I feel like eventually that interest is going to kind of die down and people are going to focus on other, you know, aspects of maybe like the monarchy that they like or something. I was thinking about World War I and II, you guys. There's been, I think for the past decades, numerous decades, World War I and World War II have been such fascinating topics for a lot of historical fiction authors. The thing is though, I feel like the well has almost run dry. As much as I love World War II historical fiction, the thing is, it's sometimes it's about to reach the point that I feel like a lot of the World War II historical fiction is starting to sound the same, and there's not too much variety or too much difference. So that's a problem. You know, that is a problem with the well running dry there. So I feel like in 50 to 100 years from now, there's a good chance the World War I, World War II genre is going to be very minimal, and we're going to start kind of moving on into some other stuff. So yeah, guys, that's it for this video. I guess semi-talking about, you know, what I'm kind of expecting and anticipating for the future of the historical fiction genre, what I think might be popular, what might not be popular. And yeah, I was kind of looking at this from some of my own personal interests, because I love all things the British monarchy, plus I'm an American, so I was kind of looking at like American events that might be, you know, issues that might be talked about in historical fiction. So yeah, my question, especially if you're not American, you live in some other country, you know, what are some issues, events, people, you know, that you think might be highlighted and discussed in the future? So yeah, just I would like to just have a conversation about the state and future of the historical fiction genre with you guys. If you think it's going to continue to be a genre, because I think over time genres have died out. I mean, you don't really see much with the Western genre, for instance, anymore. If you go into a Barnes and Noble, there's like a little section of the Western section now, whereas, you know, if you went into a Barnes and Noble, not that it existed, but if you went into one like 60 years ago, the Western genre would probably be just loads and loads of shelves. So yeah, I'm just curious what you guys think about the state of the historical fiction genre, future topics that might die out, events that might die out, people that might die out. So yeah, that's it for this video, you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.